Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're so happy you're here. Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from, and we'll get started here in a few minutes. We'll let folks come in from uh, the last session, right?
Oh, Austin and Stacy,
Hi.
we're right at time here. I'm gonna run our little hype video. All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for BB Dev Days. My name is Derek Martin, and I am a solutions consulting manager here at Blackbaud. And I'm excited we're joined today by two experts from Pranger Solutions Group, Austin Brown and Stacy Cope. And they have a fantastic presentation planned for us on streamlining your Power Automate flows. And I'm going to turn it over here to our experts, Austin and Stacy.
Great. Thanks so much, Derek. All right, so I figure we will just go ahead and get started. So let me organize all my windows. So Stacy and I both work at Pranger Solutions Group, which is a full-service consulting firm. Primarily, we help clients with annual fundraising appeals, database management, and something new, fundraising automation. Here are some of our amazing clients that we've helped build automations for using Power Automate. Stacy and I have been working in Razor's Edge for a number of many years. I personally have been working in Razor's Edge since 2012, Power Automate since 2021, so a good 4 years into this journey. Stacy?
I am almost exactly the same timeline as Austin. I started working with Razor's Edge for annual fundraising in 2011 and started doing automations 4 years ago, and we get Razor's Edge to clean itself and do some of your work for you, and it's amazing. So glad you're all here to learn more about it.
Yes, and here we are in this picture at BBCon 2024 in Seattle. Say hi to yourself if you're in the photo. All right, so today we'll have 2 parts. So first we're going to go over some of the boring stuff, terms and definitions, but generally good things to have in your back pocket as you're getting started in Power Automate. This is something I wish I had when I was starting out, just a couple of slides that listed out what I needed to know and the associated definitions involved. So the next few slides, you'll definitely want to take a lot of screenshots. The second part of our presentation will be some Power Automate practice. So we are going to build a flow together, and you can follow along as I demonstrate how to utilize the data operations connectors and the actions within. We will be using 3 connectors that involve a sign-in. So if not required, but if you want to play along and build with us, these are the 3 connectors you'll need to have active and connected in your Power Automate environment. If you are a G Suite school or org and you utilize Gmail instead, you can swap out Outlook for Gmail and it will work just as great. Stacey, you might want to mute yourself.
Sorry.
Just a heads up. All right, so let's get into the boring stuff. All right, so one of the first things that to be aware of in Power Automate is data types. So these 6 data types are prevalent within the system, and it's important to have a basic understanding of what each one does and what it means. And if you, say, have a string that has numbers in it and you need it to be considered as a number, you can use expressions to convert data types from one type to another. We did a presentation on this a couple years ago. So Stacey's going to put in a link into the chat. So if you want to go dive into expressions and how to convert data types, you can do that. This is just set this up for you to screenshot, basically. Yeah, okay. Next up is when you get into sort of the low code side of Power Automate and need to ingest sort of the dynamic content as it comes out of API calls, there's a few things that will be important to know. So the key value pairs comes in handy when you need to identify a specific field to force an expression to locate it. JSON is programming language, often returned from API calls. HTML tells an email how you want data to be displayed. Really important to us today is the system record ID, so the unique identifier on Razor's Edge records. This is what Power Automate uses to locate records and find data for you. If you want more information on that, we've got a session tomorrow on help. I can't find that field, where Stacey's going to walk you through the architecture of the database and how you can utilize the system ID to get all the information you need. And then input output seems a little straightforward, but when you're in the midst of playing with actions in Power Automate, it's just a good understanding to have that input is the data you put into an action and output is what you get as the result. Also, as we're moving through slides, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A toggle up on the top next, say you have chat messages, Q&A, to put any questions in, and we'll do our best to answer them while we're doing the presentation. Danielle, yes, Stacey has put the connectors into chat, so great. Okay. Oh. All right, so now we're going to take a look at these terms in action. So this is the JSON from an API call called getAGift. And this is how the data is returned to us in Power Automate and how we can utilize the dynamic content involved. So the first thing to be aware of is this ID, which we can see in double quotes, indicates that it's a string data type, and this is the unique system ID of a gift record in Razor's Edge. Next up, we have a float, which is a number that allows decimals, and this is the gift amount associated with the gift. Next up, dates are funny in Power Automate, you think it would be its own data type, but it's not. Very often it's recorded as a string data type, so text with those double quotes. And there are different ways to make it not appear so jumbled, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in our demonstration later on. And another important thing to recognize is this is a good example of a key value pair. So appeal ID is the key or property name, and the value is here as 36. And so this is the system ID of the appeal associated with the gift. This comes in handy later on when you get more in depth into the complications of Power Automate and specific things that work or don't work, and expressions that you need to use to force things through. So I definitely did not know what a key value pair was until about a year ago, and I wish I had known that from the get-go. Next, we're going to take a deep dive into objects within an array and the composition of how that looks. Okay. So here we can see that we have this breakout of fundraiser information associated with gift record, and this is an array, aka a list of objects. Now there's only one object in this, because I didn't want to confuse you guys too much, but an array can have many objects listed within it. We can see here that the primary object is outlined by the curly brackets, and this contains the constituent ID. So this is the string unique system ID of the fundraiser for their constituent record. And then we have a secondary object which contains the float value, which is the fundraiser's credited amount. So when we're looking at JSON, things can seem a little convoluted, right? Because you have this all the information listed out in a vertical mechanism that looks a lot like code. But if you imagine seeing this, the value and the constituent ID in an Excel spreadsheet, they would just be two cells right by each other. So that's an important thing to remember. You can always take that vertical information and put it into a horizontal row that makes a lot more sense. All right, any questions before I get into the next section? Do we see anything? No, okay. I will keep going then. All right, so specific to the highlight of today, data operations. There are two views in Power Automate. I am partial to the old designer. Stacy is partial to the new designer. They both look a little bit different, but they contain the same things. So
partial is a stretch. Stacy is making herself use the new design.
I am being an old curmudgeon, old school, refuse to use it. So I'm sure one day I will have to change my ways. Anyway, here are the two methods for finding the connector in the old versus the new designer and how their actions look. You can see that both contain the same things. It just looks a little different. So specific to data operations, these are the 7 actions involved in this connector, and we will demonstrate these 5 today. I will say that in my own work and my own builds, I tend to use compose, filter array, and select most frequently. Parse JSON is specific to API calls. And while we won't be talking about that today, we did cover this very topic last year at our BB Dev Day session, and Stacy can share a link to that in the chat. In terms of create a CSV table, you'll use this if you want the output array to be transformed into a document that you save on SharePoint or OneDrive. HTML table is very similar. It's just you want the output to appear within an email. The other ones have good uses. Select, I tend to use to isolate a specific value more than renaming things within an array, but you can use it in a multitude of avenues. So we're going to go ahead and get started on the fun part, building in Power Automate. So we're going to be following this particular use case today. So I want you to open up WebView for your database. Think of a donor who's given a couple of gifts this year, and go ahead and locate their constituent record in WebView. And I'm going to stop sharing my slides and figure out how to do that, and then we'll get started. And what we're going to end up with is this digest, and we're going to primarily use data operations actions to end up here. Okay, let me figure out how to stop sharing my PowerPoint. And then I need to share again. Screen.
You have stopped sharing your PowerPoint. We can no longer see it.
All right, can we see
There
my
we go.
home page? So this is PSG Sandbox. And I know that Roy Kent has been very generous to our organization this year, so I'm going to go find Roy Kent. Amanda, do the gifts have to be hard credit? Yes, I think that would be preferred, but this is ultimately up to you. What we are building is a framework structure, so you can make it be whatever you want it to be. You can follow exactly, or you can deviate from the plan, up to you. So we can see Roy's record here. The area that we want to pay attention to the most is up in the URL. So there is an ID listed here. This is the system record ID for Roy. So let's see if I can make my screen a little bit bigger. Oh, that does not make my browser bigger. Fun. Okay. Well, you want this value up here in the URL. This is the system record ID for the constituent record. You can also find this under constituent properties, which is up here at the top, the system record ID. So go ahead and copy that to your clipboard, and we're going to need that later on. So put that somewhere safe. Next, we're going to go into Power Automate. So give you a couple seconds to open up your Power Automate environment if you plan to follow along. Once there, please create a new flow. We're going to make it an instant cloud flow. And name it whatever works for you. For me, I'm going to write BB Dev Days 2025 Donor Digest. We're going to make this a manually triggered flow because we're still in the testing phase, and that's a good place to start. As we can see, it has dropped me into the new designer, and I am anti-new designer, so I am going to switch that immediately. But you are welcome to stay there. So if you're like Stacy and you're trying to be good and make a good change, or if you prefer the new designer, you are welcome to build there. It will just look a little bit different from what I am displaying. All right. So Stacy, I've got to hide the presentation screen now. So yeah, okay. So I'm going to keep going. All righty.
Got it. I'm going to stay muted so you can't hear my typing, but I will jump in if anyone needs to.
That's great. I am flying blind. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is add a couple initialized variables to the flow. So I know that I want to include fundraiser names, and that is going to be a couple additional steps to get that information. So I'm going to need to throw them into an array. So we'll need to initialize a variable to to be used later on. So I'm going to call this fundraiser names. I'm going to change the type to an array. And because I find it super helpful to rename actions, oh, I didn't need to do that. I'm going to put what this is called on the action name. This is a gift to future Austin, so that I can remember what I did 3 months ago while building a flow. Next up, we need to initialize an array for the digest that's going to appear in the email. So we're going to go ahead and add that. Make the type array and rename the action so I know what it's for. Next up, we are going to locate the NXT constituent connector. There are a number of ways that you can go through and find things. I think Stacy does this completely different from me, but I usually type NXT at the beginning of the connector and I can find the one I need. And we are going to use the get a constituent action. Now, that system ID that you made a copy of when we were back looking at WebView, that's what needs to go in here. So I need to go to my trusty storage place, grab it, and put it in here. So I'm just going to put a note in that this equals Roy Kent's record, because I operate on the more information, the better. I'm also going to make a note that this get a constituent is the donor, because planning this out, I know that we're going to use another get constituent action later on, which will be used to get different information. And when I want to use the dynamic content, it's easier for me to know things if I rename the action itself. All right, so we're going to go ahead and save this. Saving and testing frequently is a good best practice. It's something I should definitely do more of. I get myself in this situation a lot of times where I'm super focused and I'm 45 minutes in the middle of this thing and I go to save it and there's 5 errors and then I have to fix all the errors before I can save. So don't do what I do and go ahead and save and test your flows regularly. So we are going to test now. And make sure that the get a constituent is finding the correct record. Alrighty. So we can see here that it found Roy Kent, so we're pulling in the right thing. So that's great news. I'm going to go back to the edit screen and we're going to continue on with the build. So because this digest lists gifts, I'm going to locate the NXT gift connector. And we are going to add in the list gifts action. I'm going to use dynamic content from this get a constituent donor to put the donor's system ID into this field. So I can see here, I have get a constituent donor on the top. My cursor is in the constituent ID field, and I will just click this to add it in. So what this is going to do is it's going to go out and grab all of the gifts on Roy's record. I want the digest to only include gifts from this year. So I'm going to utilize the filter array action from data operations. So we want this purple guy with the pencil, and we want filter array. So the from, what information this is going to draw from is the value of the list gifts. So I click in, and here on my dynamic content, I can locate value, and we want value to be lowercase. My criteria is going to be based around gift date. So I can find it here. So I searched for gift date or date works, and we're going to base it off of date. The criteria is that it's going to be greater than or equal to January 1st of this year. As mentioned before, dates look a little weird in Power Automate, so there's a specific syntax you need to follow, and it needs to be year dash month dash day so that it looks like that. And then I'm going to rename it to say this year. So we're going to save and test and make sure that our filter is working correctly. Okay, it ran successfully. So we can see here on the list gifts that it found 25 gifts on Roy's record starting in 2023. And if we go and look at the output of the filter array, we can see that the first gift was in January of this year. So the filter is working as anticipated. This is great news for us. So we're going to go back to edit and we're going to keep working on the build. So the next thing I want to get is fundraiser information. And I know that the list gifts doesn't quite get me all the information I need. So I need to get a gift. That action will get me what I need. So I'm going to go to NXT gift and do get a gift. I'm going to use the gift system record ID out of the output of the filter array within this action. So it's this one, if you're looking at this in a list. Now, Power Automate is going to throw this into a loop for me, aka an apply to each, because we know that Roy has a lot of gifts on his record, and he has many gifts given so far this year. So what this is going to do is it's going to loop through every gift that qualifies for this year. Now, to get a fundraiser, I could list the fundraiser IDs, but that wouldn't really be helpful to people on the other end. I would prefer to have the fundraiser names. So in order to have that, I need to grab another action from the constituent connector. So I'm going to go locate that. It looks like this. And I'm going to grab the get a constituent action. Now it looks like this. I want to utilize the fundraiser's ID from the get a gift action. And so I'm going to type in fundraiser, and we want fundraiser's fundraiser ID. This is a little bit confusing because if you remember back to our JSON terms in action discussion, it was like a subarray off an array. That's why it's a little bit confusing here. Now, Power Automate has thrown this into another loop because a gift can have more than one credited fundraiser. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this loop so that I know that this apply to each is specific to fundraisers. And I'm going to rename this action to specify that this get a constituent contains fundraiser information. This will help me later on when I need to use the output from this action in another part of the flow. So because there can be multiple fundraisers on a record, I'm going to append that array we created at the top so that it saves through all all the names present on a gift record. So we're going to append array.
Austin, Christopher's asking, so for each gift and loop, it's going to pull the fundraiser information for each fundraiser. So I just want to clarify that. Yes, we're first looping through all the gifts, and then for each gift, it's looping through all the fundraisers on that gift. So just wanted to
Correct.
clarify.
So we're going to go locate our header of get a constituent fundraiser, and we're going to include name in this field. And then I'm going to edit I edit every action to say what it does. Personally, this just helps me later on. So yes, in this loop, it's going to go and find all the fundraisers associated with that specific gift. What we're going to do next is I would like you to add a compose outside of that fundraiser loop. So I'll open this back up if that's a little bit easier. So this is also under data operation. Compose is a great notepad. It's a great place to use sort of just to check the output of things. So we're going to use it to see the output of the array, what it looks like before. And then we're going to add another data operation action called join. And this is what's going to take that vertical array and it's going to turn it into a readable horizontal text that will be easy to understand. So we're going to use the join operator. So the originating array will be fundraiser names, and we are going to join it together with a comma and a space. And we're going to go ahead and pause here. So we're going to click save.
Austin, while we're waiting for this to run, I have a question from Larissa that I wanted to talk about real quick. So she's asking about if you need a license to do this flow, and you do. You need a Power Automate Premium license to do this. But if you add a Razor's Edge connector to your flow, there will probably be a flag that shows up at the top of your screen asking you if you want to sign up for a 90-day free trial. So I would encourage you to try that because that's a long time to get to play with things. So if you're running into that right now, that it's telling you your licensing doesn't work, maybe later today or tomorrow, go ahead and try getting into that 90-day free trial. So anyway, continue.
This is going to take a small clip of time to run because it's filtering through those 6 gifts, and for every gift, it's looking up the associated fundraisers. And this usually takes about a minute. So it'll give us a good point for you to get caught up if you're running a little bit behind. Oh, good. So we have our output. So we can see here that myself and Stacy are fundraisers on the first gift. And the join has taken this vertical array and put it into a horizontal method that's a little bit easier to understand. Just as a double check, let's go ahead and look at the next gift. Oh, golly gee, we have a problem, right? It's duplicating. So it's taking what was there before and just adding to it. The good news is I know a fix. So we're going to go back and we're going to null the array for every loop. So to do this, we're going to add in a set variable. And what this is going to do is it's going to make sure that for every loop that this apply to each goes through, so every gift it's looking at, it will make sure that the array starts at a blank slate every time. And the reason I'm going to put this at the top versus down here is in case these actions fail, I want the array to always be blank. I want it to be the first thing that happens when the looping occurs, right? So to do this, we are going to do an expression that's going to come in very handy. So in the expression field, just type in null. Null in Power Automate means blank. So when you want to clear something out, you utilize the null expression. And so I'm going to say set variable, or actually I'm going to call this set fundraiser names. All right, so that will solve our problem down here, and we will continue with our build. So next step, we're going to create the digest, what's going to go into that email table, right? So we want to append to an array. And we're going to include digest array, because this is what's going to end up in our email. Now, we're going to get into the world of a tiny bit of coding, but we're going to walk you through it. So since this is appending more than one field, we need to put this into JSON format, which is programming language that the computer can then understand for how to interpret data. So we're going to start off by doing this by putting in a set of curly brackets. So do an open bracket, double enter, closed curly bracket. Now, there are 5 fields that I want included in the digest. So I want gift date, gift amount, gift type, gift reference, and then those fundraisers that we figured out up above. So I'm going to start with gift date. So we're going to put in our key or our property name in double quotes, just like that. And then we're going to put a colon in, space, and we're going to figure out how to put the gift date in. Now, this seems a little bit extra, but I like gift dates to be formatted. So we're going to put in a very simple, straightforward expression to make sure that the gift date doesn't come out in that gobbledygook, but it comes out in the short form, standardized format. So with your cursor next to the colon, we're going to go to expression. And I want you to start typing in format date time. And you can see it's already trying to guess what I want. So I want format date time, so I'm going to select that from the list. And then I'm going to put in an open parentheses. So make sure your cursor is between the 2 parentheses. And we're going to go back to dynamic content to grab the information I need. So back in dynamic content, we're going to scroll down until we find the header that says get a gift. And this might take a few scrolls. Oh, here we go. So here's get a gift, and I want to find the date field, and it's in alphabetical order. So my cursor is still between the parentheses, and I'm going to select date. This is going to put a lot of stuff in, but really this is how Power Automate knows that it needs to utilize the get a gift output, and then it needs to identify the key of date to find the information it needs. To finish out this expression in the appropriate syntax, we need to give it a clue to how we want the date to be presented. So we're going to put in a comma and then single quote. My cursor should then appear between 2 single quotes. And we're going to write out how we want the date to appear. So in Power Automate language, we want month, which is capital M, dash day, which is lowercase d, dash year, which is lowercase y. Now, because I find it difficult to read expressions in this view, I usually select all and copy this because it will come in handy later. And I make sure my cursor is in the right place and I press OK. Now, I like to store the expressions in notes. So going here, edit note, and pasting in the expression because it is so much easier to view the expression within a note on an action than it is to click into here and see the whole thing. When you get super into expressions, you might end up with lots and lots of nested expressions together, and this just compounds on the difficulty of seeing what an expression actually does within this window. So because this isn't the only row, I'm going to add a comma to the end and go down to the next line. So from here, I want to include gift amount. So same as before, I'm going to put that between double quotes with a colon at the end. Now, I also want gift amount to be formatted correctly with the currency symbol. And the easiest way to do that is to utilize another native action within Power Automate called format number. So I'm going to go click the plus sign above and say format number. Now, I search for this a lot, so it comes up first. Within the format number, the number that I want to include is from the get a gift action. So I'm going to scroll down until I find get a gift, and I want the amount value. And I want it to appear with that currency symbol. So back in my digest, I can now use the dynamic output of this format number action directly by clicking in to there. And you can see that. All right. So the next two are much simpler and straightforward. No additional editing needed to make them display correctly. So next up, we're going to do gift type. So same as before, double quotes for that header name, colon, and then we're going to locate type under the get a gift dynamic content. And then we've got another row. So we're going to put in a comma and go to the next row. And this one will be gift reference. Same as before, we've got one more to go. So we're going to put in a colon or a comma, excuse me. And this one we're going to call gift fundraisers, colon. This one's a little bit tricky. We want to utilize the output of the join fundraiser's name. So like we talked about before, input, output, we can search for output, and that will help me locate that a little bit quicker. So we can see here with output. Now this is correct JSON, right? So we have the curly brackets, we have a comma after every row except for the last one. If you've entered JSON that is not valid, say we accidentally put a comment on this one too, and we go to save, the flow will let me know that this isn't valid JSON, and I can fix that by simply clearing out the comma on the final row. It took me ages to figure out what valid JSON was. So if you're struggling with this, no problems. This is a common headache for folks getting started in the Power Automate world. I'm going to go ahead and add a compose outside of my apply to each for gifts because we're done with what we need for the gifts. And I want to see the fruits of my labor. So I want to see what that output is from the digest array. So we're going to go find a compose under data operation. I'm going to rename this so I know what it is. And here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and I'm going to test it, and it's going to take a couple minutes to run. Stacey, anything come up on your end?
Nope, I think everybody's following along. There are some people following along and some that are going to wait for the recording, and we'll do it when they can pause, which I think is a great idea.
Yes, that sounds like a wonderful idea. La-di-da-di-da. I feel like half our work in Power Automate is just waiting for things to run and then looking at the output.
Waiting for them to save. Yeah. While we're waiting for this, I was going to also mention there are some good JSON cleaners out there. So if you ever get into a situation where you have a really long JSON that it's telling you is not valid JSON, like Google that, say, find me a cleaner, and you can paste your code in there and it'll tell you where the extra comma is or where whatever thing was. What was the second step for join fundraiser names? Tori is asking. That was the join action, right?
Yes. So you put the output of the array in here, the dynamic content with a comma and a space.
Yep.
Let me go back.
Where you want between the elements of the array.
Yeah. So I foolishly clicked off my run super quickly. So here we can see the fruits of our labor. We have information on each of the 6 GIFs located in here. If you see a null, that's okay. It just means blank in Power Automate speak. So we should be good there. So we're going to keep editing. And next up is we're going to create the table that's going to appear in the email. So utilizing the create an HTML table action in data operation. Create HTML table. And we're going to use the digest array variable. Now, the next step is what we all learned from Trevor Kelly's tried and true gift notification back in the day, is that this sometimes does more work than it needs to, in that it replaces some characters crucial to HTML with HTML language, which can complicate some things for Power Automate. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw in a compose with a replace action that we're going to gift you in the chat, so that the output of the create HTML table is cleaned up as we need it. So Stacy is going to put that into chat, and I'm just going to paste it in here because writing it out is a pain. So I just keep this handy in my notes for any time I need to put an HTML table in, and I just know to plop this in here to clean it up. And then we can go ahead and create the email to send. So I am using the Outlook connector, but if you're on Gmail, you can use Gmail. And we are going to send an email. Because we're just in the testing phase, I'm going to go ahead and send this to myself and Stacy. And you can send it to yourself as well. Because I have the ability to make this customized specifically to Roy on a dynamic basis, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to use some dynamic content in the subject line of the email. So I'm going to search for name, and our renaming of actions has come in handy. So get a constituent donor. I'm going to include name and the lookup ID. So while we operate in a world of system IDs, fundraisers are used to that constituent ID, or the lookup ID as it's called in Power Automate, to go out and locate people. I'm going to put that in there, and then because I know it contains gifts from this year, I'm going to call it 2025 Giving Digest. And then I'm going to put the output of that cleanup table action in here, and that will be the table in my digest. Thinking about this, I think it would be beneficial for people to be able to see all the constituent codes on Roy's record as well. So I'm going to put a couple spaces above this output, and I'm going to include Roy's first name. So Roy has the following constituent codes. And now we're going to go off and find them and learn about our final data operations action. So I'm going to click the plus line, add an action. And what we need is in the NXT constituent connector. And we are going to list constituent codes. Can I spell? All right, this is the one we want. We're going to utilize the constituent ID dynamic content from the get a constituent donor action up at the top. And then we're going to add in a select from data operation. I want to utilize the information from the list constituent code, so I'm going to include the value here, and we want value lowercase. Now, because I'm not renaming a key with a value, I just want to go and find all the constituent codes returned in this. I'm going to toggle to the text mode. So it's this little icon, it switches back and forth. We want the single field. And we're going to go and search for code. So under the list constituent codes, I want to include constituent code. And I'm going to rename this. Now, similar to before, this is going to return an array. So that vertical list, we want it to appear in a horizontal version that's easy to understand. So I'm going to go grab a join action from data operation. And we're going to use the output from this select constituent codes, which should appear in your list. If not, you can use output to find it easier. And we are going to join this together with a comma and a space. And then in the body of our email, we're going to put the output of this join directly into this available space. And then I'm going to go ahead and save my flow. And test it. And fingers crossed this works.
Austin, we have a question in the chat about if we could make this flow available as a template. So wanted to check in with you on that. We're gonna, I think we probably could do that. We could send it to you if you're interested in having a copy of this one that you're building right now.
Yes, we're more than happy to export this out and send it to you if you're interested. Success, so it worked. We can see here that we have this digest specific to Roy Kent and his giving for this year with all the information found. Hopefully yours is working as well too. The best part about this is it's a foundation. So if you want to make this table prettier, we have a post out on community with 4 ways to spruce up your notification tables. If you want to add extra things like campaign name, fund name, you can do that in a very similar way to how we located fundraiser name. Instead of get a constituent, you would need to utilize the fundraising, I think it's called fundraising connector, to get a campaign or get a fund, and then you can get the names that way. So lots of principles you can take and run with from this presentation. All right, I am going to get my PowerPoint back up. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yeah, and Austin, while you're doing that, we've got about a 5-minute warning, and I'm going to push the survey in about 2 minutes to give folks plenty of time to answer that. And folks, please do complete the survey. That information is not only valuable to Blackbaud as we plan our programming across BB Dev Days and BBCon and all of the other things, but you could get Stacy and Austin to BBCon in Philadelphia if they're one of our top sessions. So pay them back with your comments in the survey.
Excellent. So here are the resources, some of the things we mentioned during the presentation. And then here's our contact information. So if you want a copy of the slides, you want a copy of that flow we just built, go ahead and send us an email and we will get those to you as soon as possible. If you have any other questions about this, you're trying to expand upon this flow and you run into a headache, send us an email. We can probably point you in the right direction.
What other questions does anybody have? Aurora had a question about embedding images, which I don't actually know how to do in Gmail. I don't think I've ever tried that, although it might work, but it can be done. We can send you, Aurora, if you email me, I'll send you a link to a video that shows how to do that. And definitely send us an email if you would like the slides or the template. I'm trying to write down everybody that's asking for the template, but I'm afraid I'm missing people because the chat's moving. So any other questions from anyone? Anything else we need to do, Derek?
No, I'm going to go ahead and launch the survey.
Sounds great. Lydia, your issue with not being connected to your Blackbaud environment, that has to do with the Blackbaud marketplace. So if you do the top left corner hamburger menu in Razor's Edge, click that and select marketplace, and then go there and search for Power Platform, and you should be able to get it connected. If you can't, you'll have to ask your site admin to do that. But that, yes, once you do that connection, then it should allow you to get hooked up to your Razor's Edge. Can you all hear the trash man honking at my 3-year-old? It's the highlight of his week when the trash man comes by and he just honked at him. It's right outside my window. Sorry about that.
It's pretty good noise suppression. We can't hear that.
Good. Ooh, Ed, great question. Managing multiple connections, I always connect to the wrong one. If you have multiple Razor's Edge environments, I recommend creating yourself separate environments in your Power Platform for those, so that you know that, this Microsoft environment goes with this Razor's Edge environment, because you cannot rename them. So yes, it's impossible to tell otherwise which database you're connected to. So yes, create separate environments and never the twain shall meet is how I do it. And if anybody has any other solutions to that, throw them in the chat, because I'm curious too. Aurora says she has some actions on Blackbaud NXT and others Blackbaud Razor's Edge NXT. What is the difference? So there's a bunch of different connectors that Blackbaud has built for these, so you just have to read the names really carefully. And you want to avoid using the one that has the green icon with the check mark. So that's the original first connector that they built, and it's old. It still mostly works, but avoid that one and use the other one. So depending on what you're trying to do, you'll need either the Razor's Edge NXT gift or query or constituent or whatever, but they all are named a little bit differently. So you just have to read the name of the connector really carefully. Why do we use a variable for environment ID? Jen, we do that because we are building in multiple environments so that it's easy for us to switch out flows for different clients. You could totally, if you're just working always in the same Razor's Edge environment, you could just hard code that into all of your places that you put things. Anything else? We have like 1 minute. Has everyone finished your surveys?
Mhm.
All right. Austin, Stacy, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for, as always, for participating in BB Dev Days and being part of this community. Thank you so much to attendees for joining the session, and I hope to see you in some other ones coming up. Thanks, everyone.
See everybody. Take care.
Here, I can
Share your screen.
share which one?
Something with Power Automate. Just share the flow.
With Power Automate? Okay. Let me somehow get out of here. Here, I can edit.
Okay, give me a sec. I'm gonna get a couple of things here. All right, smile and look happy. Okay, let me see what that looks like. Oh, I'm gonna do one more. Okay, I'm gonna do one more where I'm actually looking at the camera. There we go. Okay, there's that. Let's go back. Maybe back to your like title screen or something on your Power.
Like this one?
Yeah. Okay, hang on. Let me get back to my screenshot thing. Okay. Oh, I'm making a really dumb face. Hang on, one more. Pickles. That's what Blaze says when you tell him to take a picture.
Pickles.
Yeah, I taught him to say pickles instead of cheese. Okay, I'm gonna get one with the chat in it, but let me see if I can. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same one, but with like the chat over on the side. Okay. Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, I'm gonna write down who else asked for the template, and so we can maybe follow up with them if we don't hear from them. And I think I missed a link that I was supposed to drop for you, but it was one of the old things. Oh, I'm